Cimoooooooo.
What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you my top 5 cards coming out of Rise of the Duelist. Rise of the Duelist actually has a fairly significant number of very powerful individual cards, and so I'm really excited to bring you guys this video because there is a lot that I want to talk about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Kicking things off with number 5, we have a card that you may not be too familiar with coming out of this set, and that is Ice Dragon's Prison. Ice Dragon's Prison is a normal trap card that reads: target one monster in your opponent's graveyard. Special summon it to your field, but its effects are negated. Then you can banish one monster from both players' fields that have the same type as each other. You can only activate one Ice Dragon's Prison per turn. So this is a very interesting and unique card. So basically what this effect reads is that you special summon a monster out of your opponent's graveyard, then immediately banish a monster from both players' fields that share a similar type. So if your opponent's playing a mono type deck, you can take any monster out of their graveyard and then immediately banish a monster that they have on their field that has the same type. So in terms of card economy, it is a 1-for-1, but you're also banishing something out of your opponent's graveyard as well. So you get a little bit of extra value than it might seem. One of the reasons why Ice Dragon's Prison is so powerful is because it acts as a form of graveyard interruption. Let's say your opponent's trying to resurrect something from their graveyard. You can, in response, activate Ice Dragon's Prison, target that same monster. You can then resurrect it to your field, but then for added value, banish that monster and a monster your opponent controls with the same type, so that you're going to even further interrupt their plays as well. There are so many strategies where Ice Dragon's Prison is applicable. I mean, Salamangreat is pretty much all cybers. You have Orcus, which is all machines. You have Adamancipator, which is predominantly rocks. The list goes on. And keep in mind, not only are you able to disrupt their graveyard, but you get to banish a monster that your opponent controls. It doesn't target and it doesn't destroy. This means that it plays around numerous types of protection effects and can be a very clean way to deal with some of your opponent's threats. It is a trap card, so it may be a little bit slow, but this is definitely a card that you should consider and might be worth holding on to, because at any point, if this card picks up momentum, it could become very expensive very quickly. And so for those reasons, that's why Ice Dragon's Prison is in my number 5 spot. But coming in at number 4, we have yet another trap card, but I guarantee you it will see competitive play: Shaddoll Schism. Shaddoll Schism is a continuous trap card that reads: during the main phase, you can fusion summon one Shaddoll fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your field or graveyard, but it cannot attack directly. Then you can send to the graveyard one monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as that fusion summon monster. You can only use this effect of Shaddoll Schism once per turn. This is essentially a trap card version of El Shaddoll Fusion, but you also get to use cards that are in your graveyard, which makes it even better. And if that weren't enough, not only do you get to special summon a Shaddoll monster during your opponent's turn, you also get to then send a monster they control to the graveyard that shares an attribute with that monster. So similar to Ice Dragon's Prison, it doesn't target and it doesn't destroy, so it's a way for you to bypass these sort of protection effects, and it's a way for you to get rid of these threats as long as they share an attribute. Now, one of the most powerful Shaddoll monsters is obviously El Shaddoll Winda, because if we can get a Winda to stick, especially at the beginning of our opponent's turn, they're going to be limited in what they're able to do because Winda limits them to a single special summon. And this card, it makes doing that even easier than before, especially when you pair this with the new Dogmatica archetype and how easy it is for you to get the required materials into the graveyard to fulfill this condition to summon Winda. This card is extremely powerful. An underrated aspect about this card is that it's actually a continuous trap. So if this card sticks around, you could use it in response to some of your opponent's plays to potentially dodge some of their effects. And this might be more geared towards if you're playing a heavier Shaddoll lineup, because obviously if you're only playing like Winda in your extra deck, it's not going to be as good. But if you have more Shaddoll monsters as targets to be able to summon off of this, this can be a very flexible tool. Summoning Winda against a multitude of strategies is essentially a win condition in and of itself, and so for those reasons, that's why Shaddoll Schism is my number 4 slot. Now, coming in at number 3, we have a card that's going to make a lot of combo players cry, and that is Forbidden Droplet. So Forbidden Droplet is a quick play spell that reads, send any number of other cards from your hand and or field to the graveyard, choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls, and until the end of this turn, their attack is halved. Also, their effects are negated. In response to this card's activation, your opponent cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with the same original type, being monster, spell, or trap, as the card sent to the graveyard to activate this card. You can only activate one Forbidden Droplet per turn. Talk about an absolute powerhouse. So there is so much to discuss here. Forbidden Droplet is going to be one of the staple effect negation cards moving forward because it just has so much versatility. First of all, it's a quick play. All of the forbidden spells are notorious for being quick play spells and have been some of the most powerful cards that we've seen throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and this card is no exception. But being able to negate numerous threats that your opponent controls is absolutely huge, and all it costs you is discarding some cards out of your hand or sending some cards you control to the graveyard. The thing is though, this is supposed to be a downside, but most strategies will actually love this because so many decks want to get their cards into the graveyard because they have some sort of graveyard synergy, or it allows them to extend their plays and play further beyond what they'd normally be able to, and Forbidden Droplet provides the perfect outlet for this because you're getting maximum value by shutting down your opponent's threats while also proactively moving forward with your own game plan. I also love the fact that they stuck the Super Poly clause on this card where your opponent can't respond with cards depending on what was sent for the activation of this effect. That is just the icing on the cake because so many times your opponent is going to have a way to negate something that would potentially disrupt their board, but Forbidden Droplet does not care, and I absolutely love it. There's a reason why this is one of the most hyped cards out of the set because this is going to be a staple in so many decks depending on the formats for years to come, and so for those reasons, that's why I gave Forbidden Droplet my number 3 slot. But coming in at number 2, we have a card that when I first read it, I thought Konami had absolutely lost their fucking minds, but that card is Triple Tactical Talents. Triple Tactical Talents is a normal spell that reads, if your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase this turn, activate one of these effects. Draw 2 cards, take control of one monster your opponent controls until the end phase, or look at your opponent's hand and choose one card from it to shuffle into the deck. You can only activate one Triple Tactical Talents per turn. So let me translate this for you. If your opponent activates a monster effect during the main phase, which by modern Yu-Gi-Oh standards is nothing because everything basically has a quick effect or hand traps are going to be in play, you get to then either Pot of Greed, Change of Heart, or Forceful Sentry your opponent for absolutely nothing. There's no pay half your life points. There's no you can only activate like one card after this turn. No, this card lets you just do any of those for free as long as your opponent has activated a monster effect. This is arguably one of the strongest cards in Yu-Gi-Oh's history because it is 3 banned cards in one. The flexibility that this card offers you as a player is enormous and is going to be a massive threat in the competitive format. Even if this card doesn't see immediate play, maybe it's too fast of a format, or maybe there aren't enough correct monster effects to resolve at the right time for this card to be used. There will be a format where this card becomes a mandatory staple 3 of in every single deck that you play. And Konami knows this. They've already planned this ahead by 2 years because that's how companies do this. They've made this card intentionally a Starlight rare in addition to it being a secret rare. So not only is it going to be the most expensive card in the set, but it's going to garner such high value because of the ceiling that this card has. Mark my words, this card is going to become the next Ash Blossom where everyone is going to want to have 3 of this at some point. Again, it may not be immediate, it may not be this second, but there will come a time where everyone is going to play this card because it is too good not to play. And so for those reasons, that's why Triple Tactical Talents is my number 2 slot. Now, after hearing me discuss Triple Tactical Talents, you're probably asking yourself, how is there a card in this set that is better than that is claiming the number 1 spot in this video? And the reason for that is I kind of cheated because for my number 1 slot, it isn't just one card we're going to be discussing. It's actually an entire archetype, and that is Dogmatica. Dogmatica is the new and probably most hyped archetype coming out of Rise of the Duelist, and there is just so many things to love about this archetype. It takes a really unique spin on the extra deck, using it as a resource in a way we've really never seen seen before. There have been some cards in the past that use the extra deck in a way like this, but never a fully fledged archetype that is hell-bent on using its extra deck to generate advantage, but also to take out the opponent's extra deck subsequently. Dogmatica is an archetype that centralizes around extra deck monsters, but it's kind of like an extra deck monster hating archetype, so you could kind of call it anti-meta in a way, although it might very well become meta because of how powerful a strategy it is. A lot of the Dogmatica cards allow you to just special summon themselves freely if there's an extra deck monster on the field. They allow you to get tons of searching power off, some of that searching power actually coming from the extra deck by sending its in-theme fusion monster to the graveyard to get searches during the end phase, and some of its best monsters can force your opponent to get rid of cards that are in their extra deck, and this is a silver bullet against combo decks that pretty much rely on their extra deck to function. The nice thing about Dogmatica is that you don't have to play it as a standalone strategy. The deck synergizes very well with numerous other strategies like Invoked, Shaddoll, Eldritch, the list goes on, because none of the cards really preclude you from playing any of those other decks. And this is really what I like to see when it comes to card design. I love when there's a new splashable archetype or engine that numerous decks can take advantage of for their own unique purposes, and I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! At its roots used to do this a lot more, and so it's nice to see a throwback to that type of style. Now, some people might hate this because Invoked's been around forever, and we have seen countless iterations of different Invoked hybrid decks, but Dogmatica is just the next in line to follow in the footsteps of that style, and I think it's going to be cool to see how different players take advantage of the Dogmatica cards, because there is so much potential within this archetype, and mark my words, this archetype will see competitive play, and it could arguably be one of, if not the best deck of the format. And I think what excites me the most about Dogmatica is that this is just the first wave of support. We could have potentially 3 more sets to power up this archetype even further beyond what we see now, and it could just easily dominate the competitive landscape. I think that's really exciting. We all love new cards, and I think it's a breath of fresh air that Yu-Gi-Oh! Desperately needs. So yeah, I'm a bit biased, but honestly, it's my list, so I can do whatever the hell I want. So for those reasons, that's why I gave the Dogmatica archetype my #1 slot. But guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think and what your top picks are for Rise of the Duelist. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.